Good evening and welcome everyone to St. Paul the Apostle Church. My name is Father Eric Andrews. I'm the pastor, and on behalf of our parishioners, the Paulist Fathers, we are so thrilled that you all are here tonight. It's now my privilege to introduce to you the president of Fordham University, Tanya Tetlow.
I am here to introduce our panel, but first to express my great thanks to St. Paul's, our beloved neighbor and partner, for hosting us tonight, and our beloved other neighbor and partner, the Met. This has been an incredible event, and it combines a few of my personal favorite things: music, justice, faith, and Sister Helen Prejean. And New Orleans, where we're both from. So we have a few of us in the audience. Welcome. Let me introduce first Joyce DiDonato, who's the mezzo-soprano who plays the role of Sister Helen. Joyce hails from Kansas, but has made the world her stage and her home. She has an amazingly expansive resume. She's performed in works spanning 4 centuries of opera. And her voice is, quote, nothing less than 24 karat gold, according to the New York Times. Joyce is a teacher, an activist, and a champion of the arts with a heart as big as her voice. As Joyce says, from the beginning of my unexpected career, I've sought out ways to bring the transformative, healing power of music to as many people as I can, whether on stage, in prisons, refugee camps, or the classroom. All of this is inspired by her dedication to the idea of vocation, something I hope we will hear more about tonight. Joyce has been described as a transformative presence in the arts by none other than our next guest, Jake Heggie. I won't try to read his resume because it would take too long, but he's been described by the Wall Street Journal as arguably the world's most popular 21st century opera and art song composer. And his creative range is extraordinary. He's composed nearly 300 art songs, as well as chamber, choral, and orchestral works. And besides composing Dead Men Walking in 2000, Jake has composed 8 other full-length operas and several one-act works. What really warms my educator's heart is that he spends so much of his time working with educational institutions and performing arts organizations as a mentor and a teacher. He gives generously of his time, as he does with his art. And so we're so happy that you are here. Thank you. As a fellow Catholic woman from New Orleans, I have spent my life aspiring to have the courage, and for that matter, the sense of humor of Sister Helen Prejean. My father used to tell me that most people think Jesus was just kidding. But Helen Prejean took Jesus and the Beatitudes quite literally. I was hungry and you fed me. As a sister of St. Joseph in the 80s, she moved into the St. Thomas Housing Project of New Orleans, one of the most poignant and violent places in America. Walking among moss-draped live oak trees and tripping over heroin needles and bullet casings, she cared for the amazing people who lived there. But not just that, she lived among them. I was imprisoned and you visited me. Sister Prejean was asked to write to a death row inmate named Patrick Saunier, and the rest is history. She will tell you herself about her work with the incarcerated, but I have a personal insight into the strength it took. My father, a former Jesuit and a clinical psychologist, often testified in death penalty trials as an expert, making clear when defendants were legally insane, describing their brutal childhoods. He then took a job at Angola prison, one that included working with death row. But when they first took one of the men away for lethal injection, he packed his bags and came home, suffering nightmares for the rest of his life. He visited and wrote to inmates for decades, sending them money for their commissary accounts, but he couldn't bear it. Helen Prejean's strength, courage, and kindness in doing this work would normally be among those countless acts of heroism that remain hidden from a cynical world. But for once, the world worked as it should. She wrote a beautiful book that became a bestseller, had Susan Sarandon portray her in the movie, got to borrow a dress and go to the Oscars, where her story won, and has now an opera written about her, which on Tuesday will be performed to a black tie crowd for opening night at the Met. Exactly how the world should work. Sister Prejean has continued to be a force of nature, an instrument of the Spirit, and a witness to what our society is called to be and what our Catholic faith in action looks like. And Dead Man Walking has continued to inspire artists, activists, and people of faith from all walks of life. In her book, Sister Prejean recalls that when she walked into the death house at Angola to witness the execution of Patrick Sonnier, the guard asked her, "What's a nun doing in a place like this?" Understandable question, and one she has spent the last 40 years answering. Death row is where people like Sister Prejean and the Catholic Church should be, and it is where art and opera are turning for creative inspiration. And creatives like Jake Heggie and Joyce DiDonato in turn inspire us to instead ask why we even have places like Angola's death row. So welcome all. Be sure and turn off your cell phones, and I'll turn it over to my colleague David Gibson, director of Fordham Center on Religion and Culture, who will lead us all in a conversation on Dead Man Walking, opera, activism, and faith. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Tetlow. Thank you, Father Eric, for the hospitality here. Thank you to our partners, the Metropolitan Opera, and to you all for being here in person. It's so much nicer. And thank you to our special guests. And above all, congratulations. I was one of the privileged people to be there at the dress rehearsal this morning. I was blown away. It's just really, it's so moving how the opera works on you. And again, I've been going back in preparation for this, going back to Sister Helen's book, watched the movie again, and this really just moves you in a way that none of those others even do, or in a different way. My first question is, I guess, why? Memoir, movie, stage play, Terrence McNally, opera. Sister Helen, why does Dead Man Walking continue to inspire people and inspire such art forms? What's the secret of it?
Well, I had never written a book before. I had a terrific editor, Jason Epstein, at Random House, and I had been through these experiences of people witnessing the execution and being with them and being with the victims' families and seeing their suffering, and so I wrote it down. But this editor, in my first draft of Dead Man Walking, if I hadn't had this editor, you never would have heard of Dead Man Walking. And it's really the image of the cross, because the gospel really stretches us toward the victim's family on one side and the perpetrator who did the awful crime, but who is, of course, a human being and a child of God. And Jason helped me, because in the first draft, I had so emphasized the human rights of the person being executed. And when I met with Jason, he said, "You wait far too long before you talk about the crime. What did this guy do?" Well, he had killed 2 teenage kids and plunged these families into suffering. And he said, if you don't talk about the crime in the first 10 pages of this book, nobody's going to read your book, because they're going to say, well, she's a nun, she believes in Jesus, forgiveness, and they're going to expect every religious platitude coming out of your mouth. So if you don't talk about the crime in your own outrage, that David and Loretta were killed in cold blood. David was just 17, Loretta was 18. Then no reader's going to come with you into the book. And so it's that stretching over to both sides. And that's why I say that's the image, because the gospel of Jesus calls us, it's a radical standing with people in their suffering, but not continuing the violence, which the death penalty is. So anyway, he helped me shape that book. And when Tim Robbins did the screenplay for the movie, he said it was the easiest screenplay he ever wrote, because I'd laid out both of those polarities in the book. And that's what you got to do on a journey. You got to go into both sides of things and meet the ambivalence in your own heart as well.
Yeah, there's that, that part, and it's in the opera where the parents want to, or the people who want Joseph de Rocher, as he's called in the opera, to be killed, and it's black and white. It's right and wrong.
Yeah,
and there's that temptation always to black and white, right and wrong. Yeah. And you go into the difficult part of it.
Yeah, but no, I mean, that's such a human thing for us to do. Evil, not evil, they're right, we're right, they're wrong. Look at the polarities going on in our society now. Polarities are, it's going to be the black and white, and it's either or. Mm-hmm. And what spirituality is about always, which Joyce really understands a lot about, is wholeness. And how can we hold these opposing things and not imitate the violence? I mean, when you look at it, the death penalty is somebody killed your loved one. What we're going to do for you is we're going to kill the one who killed your loved one, and you get to sit on the front row and watch the violence, and that's going to heal you. Mm-hmm. All we do is, haven't we all suffered enough, as the mother of Joseph de Rocher sings.
Mm-hmm. Jake, picking up on the point, Helen's editor, Jake Epstein, great editor. Behind every great writer is a great editor. Believe me, I know.
I know that's true.
I know. But you and your partner, the late Terrence McNally, who was just so wonderful. Love to hear you talk about him. But you go even further. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything. I hope everybody here goes to see Dead Man Walking. It is such a powerful, moving performance. You start right out of the gate, very graphically. This is an opera showing the crime. And there is no, did he do it? Did he not do it? There is no doubt that this is a guilty man. Why did you make that choice?
Well, wait.
Oops.
I'm number 2. There it is. Terrence did not want this to be a courtroom drama. Did he do it? Did he not do it? He didn't want it to be something that was where you were held in suspense through the whole evening. What he envisioned was something where, very theatrically, you see the guy do this horrible crime within the first few minutes of the opera. You know who it is. You know he did it. You know he's guilty. And we are a community that is witnessing this. Now what? What do we do as a community? How do we go forward? And that's when the character of Sister Helen walks on the stage singing a hymn, or in this version you're already preset, is on the stage singing a hymn, He Will Gather Us Around, because she's become a pen pal to this man and he's asked her to come see him. But he really wanted Terrence, this is the brilliance, I think, of the libretto. It leaves no doubt to his guilt. Then the journey is, well, what's our response? How do we as a community respond to this? Which is the big question.
Yeah.
Right? And also the way he bookended the libretto with this horrible murder at the beginning, and then an execution at the end, a legal murder. you know, and our journey from that to that through Sister Helen's eyes. It was brilliant. It's very theatrical. It's also very honest, and it's a way to get to the heart of the matter very quickly.
But I also think, you know, part of that, what comes out to me more in the opera is the no easy answers, Sister Helen and the parents of these victims. You don't get to a resting place. I mean, you really, it's so, you know, the pain on your face, it's not an easy answer. It's like, I'm sorry. You keep saying you're sorry. That's not doing anything for me.
No, it's very important to actually, but it also sets the stakes. This is why we're in the room, because of what this man did. Now we're going on a journey. Sister Helen herself doesn't know where this journey is going to lead her. She just knows it's a call, and she goes to be his spiritual advisor, and along the way winds up in the middle of all this suffering, the suffering of the murder victims' families, the suffering of the murderer's family, the mother who comes forward. And then they sing an ensemble together about their grief, saying, you don't know what it's like to bear a child. You don't know what it's like when your last words that you'll ever say to them are, fix your blouse, clean your room, take your key, and not know that those were your last words. And they get to express all that grief. And it's really testing the character of Sister Helen through all of it, because it's surprising.
Oh, yeah?
The journey. And then you have said that in your book. And,
Yeah. And can I tell him, Jake, when you hit on this sextet thing, you remember? So, of course, I don't know booscat about opera. I said that from the beginning to Jake. And in the beginning, and I just said, as long as redemption is the theme, and you don't do that 8-tonal stuff, that we're going to come out of the opera and we're not... But
she said, now, Jake, you don't write this 8-tonal stuff. We're going to have a tune we can hum, right?
Yeah.
I said, yes.
Kind of basic, you know. But anyway, when you said, oh, Sister Helen, I think we have the heart of the opera. And he was actually plinking on the piano, had the phone in this hand, and he's singing the different parts to me. And I'm in the middle. And here, you don't know what it's like to see your child go out the door, and the last word you ever say was, clean your room, or hang up your coat, or did you do your lessons? Because if you knew they were the last words, you'd tell your child how much you love them anyway. And so, and I knew too, I sensed, because there it is. And the reason I'm standing in the middle saying, I'm sorry, is because I've made a big mistake in the beginning. I didn't know what to do with the victim's family. I'm going to meet this man on death row. Looks like he's going to be executed. I mean, I know that's wrong and all, but I didn't reach out to them. They were in such pain and grief. And then when I do meet them, and where Jason helped me is nothing like being humble. That when you write a book about your experiences, he said, don't just take people on the peaks of the waves where you got it all right. Take your reader with you in the troughs where you did it wrong. And I'm going, I'm sorry, because I was sorry. I didn't reach out to them. And one of the victims' families really needed me to reach out to them. So there's truthfulness in it. And so anyway.
It feels very, very honest the way Terence laid out the libretto. And it actually... we were very collaborative for it, because he said the most important thing is that this libretto inspires music. He says the music has to lead. And if you feel the music leading you in somewhere and a scene doesn't work or words don't work, then, you know, we'll figure it out along the way. And it was very generous, and Helen was very generous all along the way as well. And she actually does love to sing. She sent me a tape recording of herself singing all these songs.
Come on, Helen.
Now, you didn't have to bring that up.
Oh, yes, I did. Oh, yes, I did. But it was actually very helpful that she's a singing nun, you know? And that it
If she
actually,
can fly,
because
then that'll
it
be
actually
something.
really helped me a lot. And also that I had not only Terence McNally, the late wonderful Terence McNally, to walk on the journey with, but also this wonderful spirit and soul who was so generous and helpful all the way through, and a real guide, giving us permission, said, I know you're going to have to change things. I know you're going to have to
That's
invent
right.
things. Make it work for the stage.
right.
I trust you. As long as you maintain that it's a story of redemption, and that we have a tune we can hum.
Big on the tune thing, yeah.
Joyce DiDonato, you do know something about singing. What drew you to this? Again, it's beautiful, it's fantastic, but it's a hard. It from the outside, it looks like everybody involved in this thing really puts their heart and soul, and has to.
Yeah, it's what drew me to it. If I'm really honest, I first sang this role in 2002 at City Opera here. I can't say I remember what drew it to me, but I'm pretty sure I was like, lead role in New York City, I'll take it for a mezzo, sure, sign me up. But of course I had seen the film, and it's one thing to say, sure, I'd like to sing that role, but then you open the score and you see what the journey is going to be. This is my 4th time doing the role over those 20 years. And I feel like this is I get it more and more each time I do it. And the thing that completely astonishes me is the truth of it all. The pain, the suffering, the questioning, the doubt. There's this I see it as a whole struggle for Sister Helen to really find a real faith. Because many times she's saying the right thing throughout the night. There's one outburst where the father of the girl says, "Do you really think this man deserves to live after he raped and murdered my daughter?" And I say, "I don't know, but I don't think we deserve to kill him." He goes, No. You tell me what you think." And I'm like, "Well, Christ said no. You tell me what Helen Prejean thinks." And my response is, well, I believe that's what my Lord and Savior wants me to believe. So she's saying all the right stuff on her journey to really arrive at a place of faith, which she does. But the amazing thing is, every time she's stumbling, she still shows up. "I gave you my word, I'm here. I don't like you much right now, Joe. I've seen the damage you've done. I don't like looking at your face right now, but I told you I'd be here. I'm here." The minute the parents say, "I'm pretty horrified at the sadness that I feel," she says, "Can I come visit you?" She's always showing up. And through showing up, and through saying yes, and through following a path that she thinks is the right one, she arrives to a place of deep faith and real love and forgiveness. She doesn't let herself get derailed even when she's not sure. And so being able to walk in those shoes for 3 hours, or weeks as we prepare it, it's incredibly humbling. It calls you to a higher order. I've had a few moments during this process that I'm like, "What?" And my partner says, "What would Sister Helen do?" I said, "I don't want to know what Sister Helen would do. I want to do what I want to do." And it doesn't feel right, of course. And so I think it's true for all of us that encounter this piece. You leave changed, transformed somehow.
But you really have. I mean, it's not just a personal journey. The work you do, you're as much an activist as an artist. You've taken this to heart, and I mean, the projects you've done. You go on her website, you see everything that you've done. I mean, what is that? You get to that word that Tanya Tetlow raised, vocation. How, what does that mean to you, and how did that come about in your life?
Well, I mentioned to you, like, vocation had a capital V around our dinner table. I was one of 7 children. My uncle was a Jesuit priest, and my aunt was a sister of St. Joseph of Carondelet.
Those are our cousins.
They're your cousins, yeah. And it was always, how are you using your time, talent, and service, period. And I was sure when I went into university I'd be a teacher, a high school choral teacher. And I did my student teaching, and I thought, wow, there is so much need in these classrooms for great teachers. But at the same time, I was loving being on stage. And I told my dad, I said, I feel really guilty because I really enjoy this. I was really good Catholic. If it feels good, it must be bad. And I said, I don't know what to do because that feels really selfish. And he said, there's more than one way to educate people. And there's more than one way to reach. And so when I started this career, this journey of being a singer, it's never been about the spotlight or, it's a pressurized career, so there's a lot. But I've always had this knowledge that the power of music can really heal and can really transform lives. And then the gift of encountering a piece like that demonstrates this in full three-dimensional glory. It's not enough just to go back and pretend that that power in the art is not there. You have to use it, or you have to try to use it. And it is the greatest joy in my life is to share music with people and see what it does to them in real time. We're going to bring a highlighted version of Dead Man Walking into Sing Sing Correctional Facility. I've been going up there for a number of years, part of a Carnegie Hall connection where they teach men composition and to play instruments. Actually, one of the men who had been released 2 years ago today, I've sung some of his music, he was there today. Really? And he saw the dress rehearsal and he was truly overwhelmed and kind of couldn't articulate. He just kept saying, it's so true. And he said, how bad we are to each other. And it overwhelmed him. And tomorrow, Sister Helen and I will be at Sing Sing working with the men as well, and then we'll do the performance a week later. I'm nervous about it because I told them a couple weeks ago, I said, this shows everybody suffering in a system that takes care of no one. And it's the convict, his family, the family of the victims, the guards, the spiritual advisors. Everybody is living in this traumatized world. And they're up for it. There's about 12 men in the program. They're going to sing the chorus with us. And they're so brave because they're going to look at this process of what it is to forgive someone, starting with yourself, but to also look at the consequences of what you've done. And until all of that is really seen, it's very hard to heal or to move forward, certainly to break the chain. And so this power of music and art, I mean, Jesus, when he wanted to make a point, right, he told a story. He would tell a parable. It's always through story because that is where we can see ourselves and others in a safe space and go, oh, right. And I just think it's the moment to lean into that. We don't need another distracting, fun entertainment thing. I mean, sometimes we need that, of course. Of course, we do need that. But it's really about that human connection to heal all the problems that we're looking at in the world.
Well, that brings me to the point of the content of this play, the type of things that the Metropolitan Opera is putting on. I mean, you wrote this with Terrence in 2000, but I mean, look at the lineup coming at the Met. I mean, Dead Man Walking, X, The Life and Times of Malcolm X, Fire Shut Up in My Bones, the Charles Blow thing, the memoir, The Hours you'll be in. What does this say about the form that, you know, we love entertainment, great opera, Traviata, Bohème, whatever it might be, but is this something going on? Is it, you know, in the form?
Yes, first of all, it's an enormously flexible art form, opera is, and it has proven that over the past 400 years, that it can be done many, many different ways, but it requires a compelling story that has resonance, and great singers to tell that story with different forces and staging. But it's so flexible, and also there are many different audiences for it. For a long time, there was this feeling that there's only one opera audience, you know, and they want to see Traviata and Trovatore and Don Giovanni. Those are all great masterworks. But just like in musical theater or in jazz or in pop or in rock, there's not just one audience. There are many audiences. So let's explore many different aspects of human experience told different ways, and find the audiences that resonates with, and maybe surprise some people who didn't think that they were going to like this, and suddenly they realize, oh, that's for me as well. So it's storytelling in a great tradition of you know, kind of the troubadours, you know, doing it with music and song and movement and staging, and but it has broad reach, and I think the opera world in general is waking up to the fact that there are many audiences and there are many stories that we can tell and still see ourselves, in addition to the great masterworks.
It's what you just alluded to when you started. You said, I read the book, I saw the film, but wow, the opera. And Sister Helen, you talk about this a lot, the power of how the music can expand the heart. We don't have to just understand it. We don't have to just absorb it intellectually. We can sit and be surrounded by acoustic sound, not condensed through a wire, not pre-programmed, live, happening right there, vibrating right there. And that has a physiological effect on you. And you get to sit with something, and many times, because opera can be a little bit long, and there's time to sort of sit with one feeling for a little while, like we do psychologically anyway, to just take some time to sort it out. It's for the difficult stories, or the ones that are sometimes hard to open to, music does most of the work for us. And that's the power, I think, of opera.
Watching the story unfold in musical time, in theatrical time, but watching three-dimensional people up there experiencing it, and the vibration, and something that you have said, the power of the opera is very different from
It's
the power.
such a full form, because you have live drama and you have music instructing your heart. You know, Teilhard de Chardin, when he wrote The Divine Milieu, and he talked about the different, in the evolution of life, when he got to try to describe music, he didn't know whether to put it as a material thing or a spiritual thing, because it's undefinable. And all we know is, like, after my sister died, there were some songs I couldn't listen to because it was so resonant of her that I'd lost. And we all know that about music. And young people, you know, very tuned in. As human beings, we're tuned in to, because we live our lives in mystery. We're born in mystery, and our death is a mystery. And music makes us touch that, where you go, oh, you can't define this. You can't logically give the formula for this. There's no algorithm for this. You feel it, and you know it. Feeling can be a deep way of knowing.
Amen. And this is the kind of crowd where you can mention Teilhard de Chardin and you don't have to define it. So it's I would like to get a few questions from the audience as well. We got some our folks wandering around with microphones. So raise your hand if you have a question for one of our panelists. One thing I would raise while we're waiting, speaking of that feeling, one thing that came out to me very sharply and was the almost intimacy between Joe de Rocher and Helen, Sister Helen, in this thing, this growing, it just, and I think that was got to be the operatic form that became so clear. Is that purposeful? Or
Yes,
am I reading into it?
that there's this friendship that grows, a friendship that he certainly has never known. You know, someone who is showing up for him regularly, someone that cares about his soul and what he's going through. You know, he's never had that.
Yeah.
And so, you know what the difference one person in your life who believes in you can make. And so for Sister Helen, as challenging as it is, the character Sister Helen, maybe the real Sister Helen too, to be challenged in this way by what this person did, but still to show up for them and advocate for them because they're a human being as well, and trying to get this person to tell the truth and acknowledge what they did. And it leads to this very deep friendship where she in the end says, look at me when they do this thing to you. I'll be the face of love for you. I'll be the face of Christ for you in that moment.
And the deepest human right, as it says in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, is the inalienable right of a person to life. And there's been a 1,500-year dialogue in the Catholic Church. And Pope Francis, in August of 2018, changed the catechism of the Catholic Church to finally come to this point of saying you can never entrust over to government that absolute right over life and death. And because it's inalienable. And what's great about the opera is we're all a community in a darkened place, and we're all going through this experience. Our sisters, the Sisters of St. Joseph, have as our special spiritual gift, our charism that we try to live in the world, is to never separate ourselves from anyone. That there's a deep connection between us as human beings. And everybody's worth more than the worst thing they've ever done in their life. I mean, I heard at trials, a prosecutor, as much as he might hate that perpetrator and want to, he could never say the person is evil. The act is evil. But we have a lot of ways we separate, and prisons are a key way. We have massive incarceration of separating people from their families. And I mean, and God becomes punisher in chief. Not the God of love, but punish. We're going to punish you. And that's not healing. So we got to, and this all helps us grow in understanding that we don't other people. And so that's what happens. It's what happened to me. At first I'm going, oh man, I'm scared out of my mind when I first went on death row. It was scary. And then meeting him was scary because I was thinking anybody can write nice letters. We're going to be, you know, I never talked to a murderer before, you know. And then, boy, is looking into those eyes for the first time, I went, my God, he's a human being. And that transcendence that is in persons, you know, and so all that's part of the experience.
I think, David, when you talk about intimacy, I love that you say that, because it's why I find, Sister Helen, your work, and Jake, this work, all your work too, it's really audacious because it's talking about real love. And the kind of love that is really, really hard to open to. And it is that human to human, without what my expectations are of you and the conditions we put on it, and meeting somebody who is so other and finding a way to them. And that is what both Joe and Helen find in this piece. But it's deep friendship, and it is a kind of love in how they take care of each other in the last minutes. He's saying, he's making the walk to the execution table, and he says, "You all right, Sister Helen?" She says, "I'm okay, Joe." And they're looking out for each other in the most precious moment of somebody's life. So that intimacy, real intimacy, is I think, the key to the piece.
When he asks if she can touch him, just on the hand, just to realize the isolation that's gone. Sister Helen, now you've been doing this for a long time, and you mentioned Pope Francis just put the clamps down. They say the Catholic Church never changes, but well,
We change all the time. We used to uphold slavery, against women voting. We change because we're human beings, and that's transformative. The gospel of Jesus is all about change. And that seed image, boy, that seed image. Look, Joyce, did you plant the seed in Sing Sing that maybe you could do this thing? Look at this. And then the seed blossoms. We change all the time.
but how much have we changed over the time that you've been doing this? Do you see progress? I mean,
yeah.
Do you see hearts changed enough?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. You know what I learned is that a book can really transform people. See, I come from Louisiana. We talk to each other all the time. I thought a book was a passive thing. People said, oh, you ought to write a book. And I go, write a book? I mean, you know, poor little book just sits on the shelf. It's passive. I mean, when you're out there talking to people, it's active, right? But then when I did write the book with that good editor to help me bring the reader, you're quiet when you read a book. You're using your imagination. It's very intimate. It's very meditative. You're not debating anything. And hearts and minds can change. And I have realized now the power of Dead Man Walking. We're up to 800,000 copies sold. And we're going to keep getting that book out. Yeah, you got 200 books here.
Yep. Are the laws changing, though, enough to you know, I see the polls say that more people are against the death penalty, but the majority is still for it. Are the laws changing to keep up with?
Yeah, well, that's the final thing, is the changing of the documents or the laws. But like, take Louisiana. In the 80s, we killed 8 people in 8.5 weeks. We haven't had an execution in Louisiana in close to 20 years now. And Amnesty points this out. The first thing you watch for is a change in practice. People just stop doing it. Juries aren't handing out death sentences as much as they used to. Prosecutors are not seeking death as much as they used to. The fire's kind of gone out of it. So it just is remaining now in the deep South states that practice slavery, and where prosecutors have been given huge discretionary power to seek death or not. And we saw what the former president of the United States, Trump, did before he left office. He designated to kill 13 people. And we had people at the Met today who were some of the lawyers who tried to save the lives of those 13 people. That was a decision of a politician. It was a decision of an individual who sends his attorney general, and 13 people were killed. And you can't put that kind of power in humans' hands. And one of the things I've discovered is, and I was naive about this too in the beginning, I thought, well, we got the best court system in the world, and if something's legal, it's right. But wasn't it Thomas Merton who said, when the world ends, it'll be legal? Was that Thomas Merton, I think, who said that? You make something legal, and that makes it all right, but it's not moral. And it's all about minds and hearts of people. We have good people in this country. I have crisscrossed this nation and talked to the American people. Bring people close to something, and they get it. Because the starting point of almost everybody, when you hear about a terrible crime, is the outrage rises, and you just say, well, they deserve to die. But when you're not close to it, and you don't see what happens. So that's why I love that we are doing this together, the art form of opera, to bring people close.
Joyce, I want to ask you about the correspondence. Joyce, you were telling me before about one way you've been drawn into this as well, with a recent correspondence. You want to tell us about that?
This is the power of art and music, really. I got a letter a few weeks ago by a man. It was written very respectfully, but it was angry. And saying, you know, I've been following your career. I can't understand how you would be a part of this entertainment that is glorifying a monster. My sister was murdered, and I can't believe this is becoming something to sell tickets to for the Met. And I wrote him back, and I said, I write this with an open heart, and I hope that I don't misstep, because it's a scary thing to write somebody like that. I said, please know that a central pillar of this story is the truth of the parents' suffering, and how the victims are also suffering from the system and not looked after. And we started a dialogue. He wrote back, and he said, I understand this is complicated. Because I talked about the forgiveness, the path to forgiveness. And if Joe isn't worthy of forgiveness, then none of us are, really. And I wrote back again. I said, it's kind of amazing that you're sharing this with me. I think you're very courageous, and I wish you all the best. And he wrote me 2 days ago and said, I just don't know what's happening, but I'm seeing all these signs around me about forgiveness and compassion, and I'm starting to imagine what it would be like if I was in their shoes. And I can imagine how I've hurt somebody and disappointed people, and how much shame I felt about that. What if it had been a murder? I'm still conflicted because I don't know if the man who killed my sister should still be living. But could I pull the switch? I don't think I could. So here's somebody who, understandably, full of rage, traumatized, had his sister taken from him wrongfully, angry. And it's this discussion around forgiveness, the music and the theater giving a chance to soften. And he said, I don't know what's happening, but I feel my heart softening. And I'm frightened and exhilarated. I love that he used that word. And it's pretty extraordinary to me to see this is exactly what you're talking about, Sister Helen, about bringing it to the people, to show people and to say, there's another option. There's another point of view. It isn't black and white. And this is where we start bridging divides, and it's where we start opening hearts.
The Sister Helen, you use, Jake, in the opera, you use the story of you being stopped by a traffic speeding cop.
It's true.
Is it true?
Actually, I was speeding. I do speed. Don't. No.
Do we have a priest on board?
The speeding nun.
No, no speeding. Actually, I was on my way to the set when we were filming Dead Man Walking. And in Louisiana, because we have so much water, we got swamps and bayous and stuff. A lot of it's bridges, and so it's 55. But often, I got to confess, I do have a lead foot. So, wow, behind me, there's the blue light, and there he is. Oh, my God. Okay, pull over. And so he comes up, and then he sees the driver's license, see, and it says Sisters of St. Joseph. And he goes, oh, man, I never gave a ticket, no, none before. My wife's going to be so mad at me. She's going to be mad at me. And so, and then he added that line. I gave a ticket to an IRS guy one time, and I got audited that year. And that actually happened. And I went right on the set, and I told Tim Robbins, this just happened. He said, we got to get that in a film. So that policeman's in a film and in an opera.
But the way You still drive?
Pardon?
Do you still drive?
Yeah.
Oh.
I drive in a lot of ways.
Have you learned anything?
Yeah, I have. I have. I'm
Good.
I'm
Okay,
more
good.
careful now.
Yeah. Good. We want to keep you here bring you back for the next book that you're writing. I know.
Yes,
right?
really.
But Jake, in the opera though, you also take. It's a hilarious story. It's also fun. I mean, when you see it, this is an incredibly powerful, intense opera, and it's funny too.
That's the brilliance of Terrence McNally. I mean, that humanizes us, right?
Yeah.
When things get tough, we go to humor.
Yes.
And it makes all of a sudden you see yourself up there. Thank God. Let's laugh about this. It's so tense. And so one of my favorite moments that Terrence completely invented in the libretto is, when at the moment in Act 2 where Joseph and Helen stop seeing each other for a moment as nun and death row inmate, and they become friends and they bond over Elvis.
Yeah.
And Terrence invented an episode where, Helen tells him, I've been to Las Vegas. He says, you've probably never been to Vegas. And she goes, actually, I have. I saw Elvis Presley. And he's blown away because he always wanted to be Elvis Presley. And there's this great, hilarious, lifting moment between the two of them. And you see their friendship solidify. And you can feel the spirit open up between the two of them. And that's, the brilliance of Terrence McNally to find that.
They sing a little bit of Jailhouse Rock.
You want to sing a little of that? You can.
No, I'm getting a cold. You don't want to hear me sing right now.
But I have to say also the score, the music, it becomes so extraordinarily powerful at the end when there's silence. That's such a, I'm not an expert, but that's such a powerful decision.
Well, silence is very powerful. And it was, again, something that Terrence and I came to as we were writing. We've had wall-to-wall music through this. There are spoken lines, but it's been wall-to-wall music expressing a whole range of emotions from every side, from every character. Lots of ensembles. So all the things opera does so well, where many people can be singing at once, and it comes, you get the whole feeling and meaning of it. But at the end, we were thinking, what would be the most powerful way to depict his execution and death? And we thought, let's just stop everything and it'll be done in silence. And his last words are looking at her saying, I love you. And then the death machine begins. The whole thing happens. There's the most powerful silence you will ever feel in a theater. And then the character of Sister Helen steps forward and sings the hymn, He Will Gather Us Around again. But it's different now because she's been a witness and now she's going to testify. And that's the journey we wanted to make for the character theatrically, is we go from the naive, almost naive kind of person who doesn't know what she's getting herself into, to someone who is now going to be an activist and has found her call and needs to seek justice.
The first time I did this in a rehearsal room over there, 21 years ago, we ran the opera for the first time, and it's harrowing. And just as a performer, it's a marathon of a role, but the character, everybody is coming. You're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. I can't save his soul. I did wrong with the parents, and she's exhausted. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the opera, she has to see in a very, very realistic way her friend put to death. And the first time we did it, we'd gone through the execution, and I'm supposed to turn around and sing this hymn a cappella, no orchestra. And I was shaking and I was crying and I couldn't sing it. And you were there, you were in the room. I said, Jake, this is impossible. I can't do this. It's too much to witness. And he said, yes, you can. I said, no, you don't understand. Like, I can't. He said, yes, you can. I'll tell you why. Because the Sister Helen that turns around at the end of the opera is the one who's been on a mission for 40 years and has a witness, has a story to tell, and has to go out and take action. And I went, oh, what would Sister Helen do? Okay, okay, got to do it.
Don't carry that too far.
And that is, it's a moment in the theater I've never felt as it's the boldest choice for a grand opera is no
that
music.
and making that guy do those push-ups and then sing.
Yeah.
Man.
That was incredible.
Yeah, I mean the push-ups.
The guy, Joseph Desrochers, at the top of Act 2, he's doing push-ups in his cell and singing a whole aria doing these push-ups. That was
That
also
borders
Terrence
on
McNally's
cool.
idea. It's not hard enough to sing it. Now do push-ups. You know?
69 push-ups and he's singing.
Right.
Okay, yeah, but here's the thing about Ryan. He's like, oh, the push-ups aren't the hard thing. The hard thing is like then your body's in like workout mode and have to get it to sing. And I'm like, yeah, that's the hard thing.
That's the hard thing. Yeah.
So now you're just
It's
showing
very,
off.
very, very human, the whole journey. And I have to say, there are a number of good tunes, not just one. And, you know, I go back to when Sister Helen's Courage, when she entrusted this to us, she called me out of the blue. And one of the things she said is that, I'd like to speak to Jake Heggie. And I said, this is Jake. And she goes, Jake, I understand you want to make an opera out of Dead Man Walking. You know what I said to that, Jake? And I said, no. And she said, of course we're going to make an opera out of Dead Man Walking. But Jake, I don't know boo scat about opera. So just her support, her enthusiasm all the way along was hugely helpful and transformative. But also, every single singer who has done, and it's had 75 productions internationally, all around the world, in countries that don't have the death penalty and countries that do, countries that don't have English as a primary language, and the piece still works, and she shows up. But every time a new singer takes on this role, they approach it with this idea of what a nun is, right? I make sure they have a chance to talk to her, or recently Zoom with her. And, they are changed. The whole concept of the role is changed. I'm sure it was the same for you, because it's not just nun, murderer. It's human beings in very, very difficult situations, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
And it doesn't hurt that she's really funny. She's also very human.
No, I think I've read something about you. It's so easy to make this about the death penalty rather than about.
Yeah, people say, oh, the death penalty opera. No. The thing is, it's a story. It's a very intimate story with large forces at work, which is the death penalty, which raises the stakes to life and death at every moment. Right. That's the classic formula for a great tragic opera. Intimate story, large forces at work. Also for comedies, and so it had. That's why I knew the minute Terrence said Dead Man Walking, it just went, that's it. That's the story. And it has a timeless, it feels very much of our time, and yet timeless, because we as human beings on the planet have always explored these questions. It feels very American, but universal, which is why the story resonates across countries, across borders, across languages, and for 23 years and into the future, and now at the Metropolitan Opera.
Jake, can I tell him that one funny story?
You
One
may
thing
tell
that
any
happened?
story. You do not need permission from me.
So Jake, as I mentioned before, when he came to the sextet with the victims and the mother of the death row inmate, and that was brought out by Terrence too. What about the mother of the one to be executed? Is she not a victim too? I mean, the families of perpetrators go through terrible things, like Mrs. Saunier, Pat's mother, did have people throwing dead animals on her porch and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, so when Jake hits this, that you have the victim's family, you have the mother singing, you got none in the middle, and he calls me and he said, Sister Ellen, I think I have the heart of the opera, and it's going to be the sextet. And then you see, after you'd been working on the opera for months, then you have people bankrolling the opera. They're putting a lot of money into it, so they're going to assemble the bankers to do some excerpts, let them know their money's going to be well spent. And Jake tells me, well, when we got to the sextet thing, the bankers were sitting there, and tears rolling down their cheeks. And I said, Jake, you ever think maybe they see their money going down a drain? I told them to go get out.
I don't think that's the case. It's
Don't misinterpret those tears.
most widely performed modern opera in the last 20 years. Yeah. My last question to you all was going to be, where do you find hope? But I think you've answered that. I find hope in you all, in this performance, and in all of us coming together. I want to thank, again, St. Paul's, our host for this. I want to thank the Metropolitan Opera. They've been tremendous at bringing in audiences and introducing them to these new forms of opera. Tanya Tetlow, our president at Fordham University, so supportive. And you all, again, being here in person, being at the theater in person is transformative, frankly. Please join me also in thanking our special guests, Joyce DiDonato, Jake Heggie, and Sister Helen Prejean. Good work.